going on in Texas.
You guys have one over?
Well, no. Yeah, I do have it. Yeah, I got it. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for sticking around. I'm between you and a coffee, right? Or whiskey and coffee. So everybody's talking about oyster production and aquaculture production. We don't even have it in Texas yet. So I get to brag. We're probably going to be the last state to have it along the coastal states. Who knows? The Great Lakes might even beat us out. But okay, it doesn't pop. Why isn't it moving forward? Which one am I not hitting? There it is. Sorry, got to turn backwards. So just to give you a little history where we're going. Yes, that it does say 1988 on the bottom. It is a living document. They're trying to update this constantly, but they've never did a comprehensive act. The public, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the fishery and where we're going to get into aquaculture. So our public season runs November through April. Most of the fishery is actually done somewhere around January. They've actually brought up as much as they can out of the fishery. Typical size, 3 inches in height. Devices hand tong dredge, and it's primarily a dredge fishery. And so if we look at Texas, there are public reefs. The public reefs pretty much from Copano Bay, which is just above Corpus Christi, through Galveston Bay. That's a common area. And there's about 39,000 acres of public reef that's allowed to be harvested. And of those 39,000, probably actually about 23,000 are typically harvested, okay? There are private leases, a little bit different than we think of for culture. These are large, they can be small as 10 acres or so, but as large as 100 acres. Only in Galveston Bay. That's the only area that these quote-unquote private leases are allowed. There are about 2,300 acres, so about 1% of what is fished. All of these leases expire, quote, next month. It feels like next month already. They were created 15 years ago, and they all expire next month. So this was a big deal for Texas. They thought, wow, this is great. We have a chance not only to do our fishery leases, but possibly bring in aquaculture. And part of this reasoning is very simple. When we look at landings, and this is meat pounds, roughly Texas has been doing about 5 million pounds of meat a year until Hurricane Ike hit, right back there in whatever it was, 08 or so. And it covered up a lot of Galveston Bay. It covered up in sediment. It smothered the oysters. And then, of course, it was followed by the BP disaster. And then we've had spring rains these past years. You can see we've had about a 70% drop in production. Mainly because of our spring rains. It's really hitting at a time when our oyster spat are settling, or oyster larvae is settling. And so before this 2015 and probably 2016 will show the same numbers, the state did. They said, you know, oyster culture is something we really need to look into. So they had a plan. They really did. And Parks and Wildlife came out, and back in summer of 2015, they started holding pre-scoping meetings, talking to the different groups, the Oyster Advisory Board, the fishery, anybody in public, notifications out. We came up earlier in the year, February, March. They were supposed to get other interested groups. They got environmental groups. They really did. They got around as much as possible. They're fairly open. And the idea was that this past end of summer, we were supposed to be adopting plans that could go into effect in March. The idea is February leasing would come in. We're stuck somewhere between that February 2016 and August 2016 area. And really what came up is this is just a lot more than they bid off than they can handle. A lot of other things came up, especially regarding renewal of leases for the fishery. And this is part of the things we mentioned already, user conflicts. This is Galveston Bay, and I think I have it. It's like pipelines. All those little red lines, if you're not green, red, colorblind, are our energy pipelines. We are an energy state. Oil, gas, liquefied propane, it moves. And those boats don't come in dock, right? A lot of stuff offhand. Those are all leased. That's leased land. That is way more money than oysters are ever going to bring Texas, okay? So we appeal to our legislators and regulators with, yes, that is, but our coastal fishing communities still rely upon this. It still has an economic value, as well as an environmental value. So this is things they are dealing with, and Texas Parks and Wildlife actually went out and looked at user conflicts, looked at everything they could, and this is one of the maps they brought up saying, hey, here are proposed zones for oyster habitat, and possibly that we could put in regular oyster type culture. And initially they wanted to do off-bottom, surface, they were open to everything. As they looked at the regulations that they could have, they only are allowed to do on-bottom culture, not even slightly off. It was shell on bottom strictly. They realized TPWD does not have the authority. They need a legislative act. And so here's one area even for restoration. I brought this in because it is comprehensive. We're talking about restoration leases. People talk about it all the time. We've lost so many of our oyster reefs. Gulf is one of the areas that has still quite a bit of it, but most areas have. So they were even looking at restoration leases, which wouldn't be allowed to be harvested. Those are the light blue, kind of hard to see. That's why I put it up. On top of it, the industry themselves started saying, what can I do? What can happen? And an individual went out and they said, look, we're going to lease bottom ourselves. And they went to the, I think it was Liberty County, I can't remember which now, yeah, Chamber of Liberty County Navigation District saying, you have bottom rights, I'm going to lease them from you. And the Chambers of Liberty County said, hey, that sounds great, it looks like we can do it. TBWD disagreed. This case is still in court. Hence, another reason things are being held up legislatively. Although it's been quote-unquote settled that Navigation District did not have the rights, it's still going through the court procedures. So more or less TPWD is having to say, well, we can't move forward on culture area. And they've moved back to strictly working on their existing leases. This was what they had proposed. Bottom leases, we'd have existing leases. Had an idea of a reclamation lease. These two leases were commercial leases. And then the restoration leases. The restoration leases were meant not for harvest. The reclamation lease was an interesting area. It was actually going to lease to a commercial person to put down shell. They wanted shell put down. Harvest it for 10 to 15 years, somewhere about 10 to 12, and then it was going to go revert back to the state, more or less as restoration. So they're asking industry really to do restoration processes. And of course the industry didn't appreciate that, saying, hey look, if you start seeing how much money we put in shell, this just doesn't fly. So the proposal also, as you go through legislative language, or the language right now, a lease turned into a certificate of location. So if you go back and look at anything, they're going to be certificates of location. All locations, they still were going to go with a 15-year line from February, so we'd be going out to 32. 100-acre maximum per tract, because a lot of it was dredge fishery, even if they were looking at quote-unquote aquaculture, they would be laying down shells. With a maximum person owning 3 tracts, up to 300 acres. They wouldn't allow anything more than that. The Texas General Land Office now is going to give a new surface easement fee that hadn't been there before. There was going to be about $200 application fee, renewal fees, and an active use criteria that hadn't been there before. The existing and quote reclamation leases were going to go up for sealed bids. This was something the industry really didn't appreciate. It was going to be actually, hey, you want to lease it? You put in a sealed bid, and when we open them up, we'll determine who gets that. Had no idea what the price structure was going to be. However, if it was on an existing lease, the holder of that lease point would have a first, it wasn't first right of refusal, it wasn't first right of refusal, it was, hey, I will either pay what that top person said, you know, who got it, or I will refuse it. That didn't happen. And at the time, they were going to bump up the fee from $6 to $12 an acre. Reclamation, as I mentioned, was located on depleted public beds, and they'd revert back to the public at end of term. And restoration, they weren't going to have an annual fee at all. It was going to be closed to harvest, and the site would be coordinated with Texas Parks and Wildlife. So it was kind of an interesting thing for restoration. Well, what's really happened? One of the nice things is Texas Parks Wildlife Commissioner meetings are open. And transcripts and audio are on the web. So if you ever want to go hear it, you want to go hear or see what happened, you can go to the website, find it, it'll be there. So at the November meeting, which I sat there, what's nice too, you sit in your office, listen to it in the background as you need to. But it is, you're there live, hearing everything, and then wait for the transcript. So what's come up with this November 3rd is the term is 15 years. Renewals of the certificate of location are going to occur, actually are occurring, should be done by the end of February, so all of our people who have leases in Galveston Bay will have them. It still is the 100 acres, TGL surface fee, $200 application fee. The active use criteria did not go through, but they were looking at a shell deposition of so much, and then what they were going to do, saying depending how much you harvest, we're going to want so much back. And that was removed at the last minute. They said it just isn't going to happen. They've settled upon $20 an acre. It had been $6, it had been suggested to go up to $60, and between the Oyster Advisory Board and others, $20 has been settled. There is closure now for commercial and recreational oyster harvest on Sundays. They've said, look, we're going to take out a day. The reason they have not hit their sack limit per day in something like 7 or 8 years. So even when the oyster guys are going out, they're not even getting the maximum they can. So the state's more or less saying, look, you're taking off Sundays. They don't all like this. Sundays sometimes are the only day they can work, but they're just, this is what we're going to do. The reclamation restoration leases are now off the table for now. And actually those renewal regulations went into effect last week. And so we're going to see where it goes from here. The state, Texas Parks and Wildlife, is going to move forward in the spring again with bringing up aquaculture and restoration leases. We'll see where it goes. Our legislators meet every other year. They're in session now, so it'll be 2 years before we get legislative language that will allow certain things. So that's where we are for now. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Quick question.
I do have one. So I was following up and looking at a few things talking about Galveston Bay leases. There was a huge argument that I was trying to understand, but being removed from it, I was having an issue about a single industry, someone single sourcing a lot of Galveston Bay as a lease. What was?
So that wasn't Galveston Bay. It was actually that inland navigation. That's what I talked about, Project Storm.
Okay.
And it was. Always got to think about this. This was. I don't remember if it was East Galveston or West Galveston Bay. That's right. It was part of. And they were looking at, just to give you this, Project Storm was looking at privately leasing 23,000 acres, which is what the fishery is right now. And the problem there that people thought, the rest of the fishery thought, was it was going to be totally off limits to them. And it was even going to be off limits like recreational people. So that's where there was a major butting of heads. And it was interesting because it came from within industry, and an industry person brought that up. So Project Storm is still there. It's in litigation because of who had the right to lease that. And Chambers, Liberty County supposedly did not have that right. But there's always appeals, and so it's still sitting there. So that was what that was all about. That was that project. Just look up Project Storm. Go find it. I'm not going to get into it. It's a great story.
Sorry.
It sounds good. It sounds like a way to move away. Any other quick questions? All right.